the rise of America's greatest metropolis. A sprawling urban giant home to over 8 million souls, featuring tens of thousands of streets, 5 distinct boroughs, and 3 major waterways, all combining to create one of Earth's most extraordinary cities. What makes this achievement even more astonishing is recognizing that nearly everything we associate with this metropolis today, its legendary skyline, world-class cultural institutions, and vibrant street life, barely existed just 100 years ago. The city's story is one of relentless change, perpetual growth, and continuous reinvention that has reshaped it beyond recognition over the centuries. But what path did this urban powerhouse take from its humble beginnings as a modest European trading settlement 4 centuries ago to become the massive metropolitan giant it is today? This is the story of how New York rose to become one of the world's most influential cities, the land before the city. Before the age of concrete canyons and soaring towers that define contemporary New York, this region was characterized by thick woodlands, meandering waterways, and thriving natural ecosystems. Indigenous peoples of Algonquian heritage inhabited these lands, with the Lenape being the predominant group. These communities existed in balance with their environment, sustaining themselves through hunting, fishing, and agriculture for approximately 8 millennia, before European contact disrupted their way of life. Early European contact. The 16th century marked the beginning of European ventures into the Americas, as seafaring nations including Spain, France, and the Netherlands pursued new maritime routes to these resource-abundant territories. In 1524, Giovanni da Verrazzano, an Italian navigator commissioned by France, became the first European to witness the coastline of what would eventually become New York's harbor. Verrazzano declared the territory for France, though no immediate colonization efforts followed. Nearly a century would pass before Europeans returned to establish a permanent presence, and it would be Dutch colonizers who would first leave their enduring mark on the future New York. Dutch foundations. In 1609, Henry Hudson, an English seafarer working for the Dutch East India Company, was charged with discovering the fabled Northwest Passage, believed to link the Atlantic and Pacific. During his voyage, Hudson navigated up the Great River of New York's harbor, now named in his honor, and claimed the surrounding zones, territories for the Dutch Republic, establishing the groundwork for future Dutch commerce and colonization. The subsequent years witnessed the establishment of Dutch commercial outposts along the riverbanks and coastal areas, forming the broader territorial expanse of New Netherland. These early settlements concentrated primarily on the lucrative pelt trade. In 1624, the Dutch West India Company dispatched a vessel carrying colonists to create lasting civilian communities throughout the region. After initially landing on present-day Governor's Island, settlers spread to designated locations across New Netherland. A contingent was stationed at Manhattan's southern extremity to build a defensive structure protecting the river entrance and the precious fur shipments traveling through it. Thus, Fort Amsterdam's construction commenced in 1625, rapidly becoming the nucleus of an emerging settlement, New Amsterdam, the precursor to New York City. At this juncture, the creators of this content wish to acknowledge the mental health challenges inherent in creative work. The demands of research, composition, animation, editing, and production can create significant stress. Recognizing the importance of mental wellness and seeking support when needed remains crucial, whether through professional counseling services, self-care practices, or taking necessary breaks to maintain both personal and professional well-being. The Manhattan Purchase and early growth. In 1626, seeking to formalize Dutch territorial claims, Peter Minuit, Director General of New Netherland, acquired Manhattan from a local Lenape group in exchange for trade items valued at 60 guilders, approximately, equivalent to $1,000 in current currency. Under Minuit and his successor Peter Stuyvesant, the colony expanded to roughly 1,500 inhabitants by 1655. Stuyvesant proved unpopular among colonists due to his restrictive policies, including controls on alcohol, commerce, attempts to dominate the Dutch Reformed Church, and preventing Quakers, Jews, and Lutherans from establishing worship spaces. The Dutch West India Company tried implementing more tolerant measures, but these reforms were disrupted by international conflict, English conquest, and control. During the latter 17th century, the Netherlands and England competed fiercely for maritime and commercial dominance. The Anglo-Dutch Wars between 1652 and 1673 saw their navies clash repeatedly. In 1653, New Amsterdam's residents constructed a protective barrier along the settlement's northern edge, today's Wall Street, to defend against potential English attacks from New England territories. Despite these precautions, in 1664, an English naval force arrived to seize New Netherland and New Amsterdam. Stuyvesant lacked the means to resist and surrendered peacefully. The English rechristened Fort Amsterdam as Fort James and renamed both the colony and settlement as New York, honoring James, Duke of York, the future King James II. Though the Dutch briefly recaptured the territory in 1673, the Treaty of Westminster in 1674 permanently restored English control, concluding hostilities between the nations, colonial development, and revolutionary stirrings. Under English administration, New York flourished economically, attracting steady European immigration. The city retained many Dutch-established institutions and customs, including slavery, which had become deeply integrated into the local economy through the port's slave trade. By the 1740s, approximately one-fifth of New York's residents, around 2,500 individuals, were enslaved. As the 18th century advanced, New York became a center for political activism and cultural transformation. In the years preceding the American Revolution, the city hosted the Sons of Liberty, who confronted the substantial Loyalist population. The Stamp Act Congress convened in New York in 1765, unifying the colonies against British taxation and establishing principles that would underpin the Revolution and the Declaration of Independence. Revolutionary War and aftermath. During the independence struggle, New York played a crucial role. Initially held by Continental Army forces, when conflict erupted in 1775, the Battle of Long Island in August 1776 resulted in a devastating American defeat under General George Washington. British forces occupied the city throughout the war, using it as their operational headquarters. The 1783 Treaty of Paris ended the conflict, and British troops evacuated, leaving New York as a symbol of liberty in the nascent American Republic. In January 1785, New York became the national capital, hosting momentous early American events. George Washington took the presidential oath at Federal Hall in April 1789, while the first Congress assembled and the Bill of Rights was composed in the same Wall Street location. Financial and commercial ascendancy. The 19th century's dawn saw New York emerge as a worldwide financial and banking hub. Wall Street and Lower Manhattan housed Alexander Hamilton's Bank of New York, founded in 1784 alongside the New York Stock Exchange. Established in 1792, the Erie Canal's completion in 1825, connecting the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and Atlantic Ocean, transformed New York into America's premier port, surpassing Boston and Philadelphia in significance and capability. Immigration and urban transformation. As the city expanded, massive European and Asian immigration swelled the population from 60,000 inches, 1,800, to over 500,000 by mid-century. Newcomers escaping poverty, persecution, and political turmoil sought opportunities and fresh beginnings, transforming New York into a diverse cultural mosaic. New York State's 1,827 abolition of slavery brought an influx of freed African Americans, further increasing the population. The Lower East Side became an immigrant epicenter, with densely packed tenements and busy marketplaces filled with arrivals from Italy, Ireland, Eastern Europe, and China. This rapid population surge created unintended problems. Overcrowded conditions fostered disease outbreaks like cholera epidemics beginning in the 1830s. The Great Fire of 1835 destroyed roughly 50 acres of packed tenement buildings. Impoverished neighborhoods like Five Points and Hell's Kitchen experienced poverty-driven issues, with criminal organizations like the Dead Rabbits and Bowery Boys engaging in theft, robbery, and violence for survival. Civil War-era tensions. The American Civil War's outbreak in 1861 brought continued challenges. Though New York State supported the Union, the city's strong Southern commercial connections, growing immigrant population, and conscription resentment created divided loyalties. The 1,863 New York draft riots, sparked by wealthy individuals purchasing exemptions from military service, became among America's worst civil disturbances, lasting 5 days. Cultural Renaissance. Following the war, New York experienced a cultural flowering. Central Park, opened in 1858, offered green recreational space for all residents. Broadway theaters and Carnegie Hall hosted brilliant performers and productions, establishing the city's reputation as the nation's cultural heart. Several major institutions emerged during this period: the American Museum of Natural History in 1869, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in 1870, and the New York Public Library in 1895. Enhanced cultural offerings boosted journalism, with publications like the New York Times, New York Herald, and New York World shaping public discourse and making the city a national media center. Infrastructure and icons. Manhattan's northward expansion and Long Island connections spurred infrastructure development. The Brooklyn Bridge's completion in 1883 was followed by New York's most defining symbol in 1886, the Statue of Liberty, France's gift to America. Positioned in the harbor as a beacon of hope for arriving immigrants, many of whom passed through the Ellis Island Immigration Facility established in 1892. The modern city emerges development accelerated into the 20th century. The New York City subway opened in 1904, linking City Hall to Harlem and Brooklyn. The cityscape evolved with the Williamsburg and Manhattan bridges opening in 1903 and 1909. Competitive architects and developers, pursuing record-breaking heights, created iconic structures like the Woolworth Building, Chrysler Building, and Empire State Building, completed by the early 1930s, showcasing the city's economic strength and architectural ambition. During the 1920s decadence era, speakeasies and jazz venues thrived despite Prohibition's federal alcohol ban. Bootleg liquor and underground entertainment flourished to such extent that estimates suggest between 30,000 and 100,000 illegal establishments operated simultaneously. Depression and war. The exuberance of the Roaring Twenties ended abruptly with the 1929 Wall Street crash and subsequent Great Depression. Financial institutions collapsed, businesses shuttered, and unemployment skyrocketed, leaving countless New Yorkers jobless and struggling. Parks, including Central Park, housed desperate people constructing improvised settlements, mockingly called Hoovervilles, after President Herbert Hoover. Conditions improved only with World War II's outbreak in 1939. Though America wouldn't enter for 2 more years, New York mobilized, with factories producing military equipment and ports becoming vita.